Damn it!
Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. I'm Chuck, and welcome to my blog. Sort of like having my own virtual TV station in cyberspace. Sometimes it's a reality TV show.
Say hi to the movie, honey.
Hi to the movie, honey.
Other times it's music. Sometimes it's photography. But most of the time, it's politics. My politics. My take on what's going on in the world. While mainstream news is sold to us by a handful of corporate media giants, blogs offer a more personal, citizen media perspective. When you start a blog, you are the media. So what is a blog? That's the question I asked on the streets of Times Square in New York and in Austin, Texas.
Oh no, I don't know what it is. A blog, it sounds familiar. I don't know.
You know what a blog is?
Sorry? That's what I left in the toilet this morning.
A blog is an online weblog.
Very good.
Was I too educated for your? You want to make it look dumb, right?
Yeah,
and I'm ruining your whole
you
kind
just
of.
ruined it.
I'm sorry.
No.
What's a blog? I don't know. It's a stain on your shirt.
Those one of those words that you're not supposed to be said. Blog.
Blog? Lose on Grand? I actually have a blog. Yes.
You have a blog?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
It's thinkabout.org. I haven't updated it for a week because I'm too busy at work.
Very good. Why do you have a blog?
Because I believe I have unique opinions about socioeconomic issues, and I feel a deep emotional need to share them with the masses.
Blogging certainly isn't for everyone, but I knew it was for me. I started mine on September 24th, 2002. I guess I had a deep emotional need to share myself with the masses. In my very first post, I asked, does the world need another blog? Yes, because the world needs more conversations, online and offline. I'm more engaged and informed than ever reading blogs. One of the blogs that inspired me to start my own was my friend Crystal's blog, Space Waitress.
The tone on a lot of blogs, on my blog and a lot of the blogs I read, is one of indignance and anger, but I don't think it's unjustified. I think Democrats really feel like we can kick Bush's ass and kick him out of the White House in 2004, but sometimes I feel like blogging is just this huge echo chamber and we're not, we're preaching to the choir and we're not accomplishing anything. But other times I really don't think that's true because I've learned so much from blogs that are out there. I think blogging couldn't have come along at a more auspicious time. We have an administration in place whose modus operandi is to lie about everything. When mainstream journalists don't have the cojones to call them on their lies, I think it's good that, the blogosphere does.
Like many bloggers, I talk a lot about politics and the media. Here in my second blog post, I have a news headline. Rumsfeld announced on Monday that American and British warplanes had begun bombing major air defense sites in Iraq, a move that could prepare the way for an invasion. Now here I link directly to the New York Times story, so my readers can go right to the source. And here's the juicy part, my commentary. Buh? Since when is bombing a mere preparation? Why isn't this a big deal? Do we bomb Iraq all the time and nobody hears about it? Yeah, we were bombing Iraq all the time, but it wasn't getting much media attention. I found that out because someone told me in a comment. That's where the conversation happens. This link and commentary style blog post was developed by the early webloggers. Rebecca Blood was one of those early webloggers, and she explains how the forum got started.
Early webloggers were filters. They were filtering the web, they were pre-surfing it. And they were explorers. They loved to explore the web. They loved to find web pages that were interesting or news articles that were really interesting as news went up on the web. They would put it up on their website as like, look what I found today.
Those original bloggers were often web designers who coded their blogs using HTML. But starting in 1999, free blog websites such as LiveJournal and Blogger made it easy for anyone to start a blog. Push-button publishing for the masses meant you no longer had to be a geek to have a blog. The resulting explosion of blogs devoted countless pixels to semi-private thoughts and ramblings, shared among friends, or anyone who stumbled into them. You might encounter the utterly boring and mundane.
Last night I got home early enough to make myself a vegetable sandwich, but instead, I had extra creamy macaroni and cheese. You guys, I'm so bad.
Then again, you might become engrossed in someone's personal drama, or increasingly gain new political insight that you weren't getting in the mainstream media. But personal journals are nothing new. Meet Samuel Pepys, the original blogger. Private diaries became popular in the 17th century, with the rise of literacy, cheaper paper, and a heightened awareness of the self. Samuel Pepys started his diary in 1660, a time of political turmoil in England. Pepys was in a position to document the unfolding drama. Much like a blogger, Pepys was extremely self-obsessive and combined political observations with details from his personal life. Unlike a blog, Pepys' diary lacked an audience, remaining secret until after his death. Political bloggers can find inspiration in the pamphleteers of the American Revolution, the original amateur pundits. Thomas Paine was a working-class intellectual, quick to take up a pen in defense of the colonies. Samuel Adams not only took up his own pen to influence politics, but roused his countrymen to do the same, organizing committees of correspondence throughout New England to keep citizens informed and stir them to action through letters and pamphlets. Our very democracy was founded upon personal political writing intended to inform and motivate, and to bring like-minded people together to act. But somewhere along the line, mass media took over for the voice of the people. Publishing, radio, and television industries took over the job of informing and entertaining the public. What once was an active public became a passive audience. Eyeballs replaced voices. Blogs are returning democracy to its rightful owners.
I think weblogs have gone through 3 phases now. The first phase was the tech phase, where the people who invented this form took it on and brought it to life and did amazing things with it. But then September 11th brought on a whole new host of authors. I originally called my weblog Warlog. I changed it to BuzzMachine because I had that domain, and it's a good domain, and it works for what weblogs are all about, is buzz. But I started with the view that, yes, I was a warlog because this was a war on terrorism, a war on us. On the morning of September 11th, I came to the World Trade Center on the last PATH train from New Jersey. I knew something was wrong. It was quiet. The World Trade Center is never quiet. The blog became more than just being able to write about 9/11. It became a way for me to keep informed about it because of all the links out and the links back, but it also became a way to make friends. I met people through this weblog, people who I now consider good friends I haven't met face to face.
I think having a weblog and the audience I had from having a weblog totally changed the way I perceived the event and my position, my place in the world. It was amazing. I mean, compared to people that I knew that felt very isolated and like they couldn't explain to anyone what it was like, I felt like I should try.
Blogs are a truly global phenomenon. putting the world in the World Wide Web. I've become friends with people like Matthew Clayfield, a young filmmaker in Australia.
I am 18 years old. I'm blogging about my film career, basically about what I want to do with the rest of my life and how I'm going about doing that. There's something really comforting in venting to a stranger, and that's just human nature. You know, no one can see it or everyone can see it. It's out there in the void. The fact that I'm able to yell out into the void whenever I want, that's very liberating in this world.
I made a new Brazilian friend through my blog, Carmela. She wrote her journalism thesis about blogs, and I interviewed her over a webcam and cell phone. But first, she had to tell me about her tattoos.
Like, people in Brazil, not many people are used to have like so many tattoos, and I'm like a little tiny person, so everybody's, oh gosh, look at her. Ladies and gentlemen, we are floating in the space, and says, all I want in life is a little bit of love to take the pain away. Thinking about blogs. Oh, it's a piece of code on your screen, and it's through the internet running. What makes it sensitive is the person writing. And if a person writes, only if you read, you will make that romantic side appear.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful thing to say.
Continue this call with a different card number. Enter the new number now.
Miguel is from Portugal. I met him through the comments section of a Minneapolis blog called Plain Lane.
What kept me interested about Lane was I thought it was real. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a fantastic life. Someone professionally very active, very eager to do new things and cool things. Someone with a bit of a chaotic personal life, and very different from mine.
Lane was a 26-year-old single woman from the Northwoods of Minnesota, adopted, and now working insane hours doing IT work for her ex-boyfriend at Minicorp. Zipping around town in her black Volkswagen Bug, going to all the cool rock shows, struggling with her past, and falling in and out of love with other women. Lane's life was better than any soap opera, all the more so because she was a real person, living in my city.
I used to start my mornings, I used to start first thing reading Plain Lane.
But you think my life sucks? Wrong. Now I get to go home and slide into bed next to Lauren and wake her up with intense passionate kisses, and that's my reward for enduring another brutal day in this corporate dystopia, making love to the girl who makes love to me back.
Lane revealed incredible emotional honesty with her readers, and often we shared back. Some commenters tried to give her advice. One of Lane's followers was Ryan in Manitoba.
I was actually quite impressed by the fact that this woman would post something about her life. And she had a very interesting life. And there would be anywhere from 30 to 100 comments afterwards from various people. And so I found myself getting hooked and revealing more of myself online perhaps than I would have, because I felt that I was sharing my experience with her and she could learn something from me.
But on June 8, 2004, Lane's blog vanished, leaving behind nothing but a mysterious Polish error page. I was especially bummed that I never got to meet her, but she remained elusive. One of the most meaningful parts of having my blog is the friends I've made right here in the Midwest. People like Starfire and the gang up in Duluth.
We'll call it Starfire
Lane and Tina down in Iowa City. Sharon and the little man right here in Minneapolis. Come to think of it, finding a blog you like is a lot like making a friend. Sometimes it's pure chance, but usually it's because you're linked through a mutual friend. Dr. David Weinberger knows all about links. In his book, Small Pieces Loosely Joined, Weinberger says the web lets us connect with each other in all kinds of exciting new ways, not possible in the real world.
The web is an architecture of generosity.
I like to think of him as my own personal Yoda.
Weblogging at first looked like it was writing, which is an author setting down her or his thoughts because the world needs to hear those things. And that happens too, of course. But it turns out that weblogs are much more like conversations.
If you were to ask me, how can I learn quickly about a topic like forgiveness? Seriously, the best advice I could give is go find some blogs that have talked about forgiveness. There's a guy named Akma, A-K-M-A, who is a theologian. He started writing about forgiveness, and people replied. And he's Episcopalian, and Jews wrote in, and Buddhists wrote about on their blog what they thought it was, and Muslims, and they started arguing with one another, and little branches branched out here, and a philosopher would disagree and point over there. You want to know about forgiveness? You want to see it refracted through multiple viewpoints and real passion? Go Google forgiveness blog. That's how you should do it.
Links are the language of blogs. Links connect one blog to another, one person to another, forming a decentralized web of conversation and opinion. You might call it distributed intelligence. Or you might call it the hive mind. The instantaneous nature of linking in the blogosphere creates a powerful force, the power of many. When bloggers get excited about something, they swarm around it, feeding off each other and raising their voices, sometimes shattering the very walls built around our system of politics and media. Blogs are all about the buzz, and sometimes the buzz is loud enough to bring down one of the most powerful men in the country.
Then the Senate Republican leader said this.
I want to say this about my state. When Strom Thurmond ran for president, we voted for him. We're proud of it. And if the rest of the country had followed our lead, we wouldn't have had all these problems over all these years either.
Whoops! Lott's racist remark went largely unnoticed in the traditional media. But one respected political blogger, Joshua Micah Marshall of Talking Points Memo, stayed on the case and discovered Lott had made similar comments earlier in his career. The story was quickly picked up by other bloggers who kept the issue alive until the traditional media began covering the controversy, ultimately leading to Lott's resignation.
I respect the very difficult decision Trent has made on behalf of the American people.
The role of blogs in Trent Lott's downfall was a warning shot fired over the bow of traditional media. Traditional media is supposed to be the fourth estate, an Old English idea meaning a free press should act as the guardian of the public interest, a government watchdog. But the corporate media landscape is increasingly driven by ratings and advertising.
I thought I told you to kill that story.
Journalism is under pressure to be faster.
This reporter is in a hurry, and for a very good reason. He's going to cover a fire.
And more entertaining.
We have a funny little bit of video out of Japan. There is this orangutan. Her name is Gypsy.
Dissenting voices are increasingly rare, making the media vulnerable to groupthink journalism. Does the media represent the public interest or its own agenda?
Today, democracy can ebb away in communities whose citizens allow power to become concentrated in the hands of bosses.
What I say goes, see? I'm the law around here.
The numbers speak for themselves. A Gallup poll conducted in 2004 shows that the public's trust in the media has taken a dramatic decline. Only 44% of Americans are confident the media reports news fairly and accurately. 39% say they have not very much confidence in the media's accuracy, and 16% say they have none at all. And it's no wonder. Journalism has been taking a beating. Before September 11th, foreign news coverage was marginal at best. After September 11th, The mainstream media's coverage of the war on terror gets blasted from both sides of the political spectrum. The left accuses the mainstream media of getting swept up in the march to war, failing to be critical of the Bush administration's assertions about weapons of mass destruction.
He's a man who may be developing weapons of mass destruction. We don't know because inspectors aren't in.
Both the New York Times and Washington Post later admitted to failing in their watchdog role. Conservatives say the mainstream media is too liberal, focusing only on the negative news in Iraq, instead of the positive. Mix in the fraudulent reporting of Jason Blair and subsequent shakeup at the New York Times, and you have the perfect recipe for losing the public's trust.
But it must be true. I saw it in this book right here.
The conservative Minnesota bloggers at Powerline are longtime critics of the so-called liberal media.
You know, I love the internet, and I was getting a lot of my news off the internet, spending a fair amount of time just, cruising news sites. I had started reading a couple of blogs. And the thing that always has frustrated us about writing for newspapers, you've got to wrestle with editors to get it the way you want it. And the immediacy of blogging and the fact that you didn't have to fit those space contours and so on really appealed to me. One of the great things that the blogosphere has done is, to some degree at least, it's a corrective to so-called mainstream journalism, and to some degree, bloggers help to keep reporters honest. Now, we know that there are reporters at major newspapers that read Powerline because we hear from them. And we know that their view of what's going on in the world and what's news, what's bubbling under the surface that maybe is not being reported by the mainstream dailies, it comes in part because they do follow the blogosphere, so it's a very important role. But if you look at some of the really bad reporters, I mean, people like Dana Milbank of the Washington Post, who's basically an operative for the Democratic National Committee, he has been relentlessly critiqued in the inaccuracy and the misleading nature of his reporting. And he's not an editorialist, he's a news reporter. They've just been devastated in terms of the merits, the accuracy of what they report by conservative bloggers. And as a result, the Washington Post has had to issue a series of corrections of inaccurate articles that were written by Dana Milbank. And I think that has an impact. He knows somebody's paying attention. We love to make fun of the New York Times. I mean, they're the worst, they're the bottom of the barrel. Not only biased, but incompetent. We've done a whole series of posts, really all of them just taken from the Times' own correction section, pointing out the just laughable lack of knowledge of things like history, literature, arithmetic, science. I mean, the level of ignorance of the people who write for the New York Times and worse yet, edit the New York Times is comical. But, one of the things that we try to do, obviously, is balance out the one-sided coverage of the war in Iraq and other aspects of the war on terror. I mean, obviously, most of the news coverage that you read is very negative, very pessimistic. You get a guy like Paul Krugman, who's just an absolute disgrace, columnist for the New York Times. The guy cannot, if you offered him $1 million to write a true sentence, he couldn't do it. I mean, the man gets up in the morning and he starts to lie. And the Democrats still control essentially all of the mass media. They control every major newspaper in the United States. They control all of the broadcast networks. They control all of what are called the mainstream news magazines. I'm talking about the reporters primarily. I'm talking about
what about the ownership?
Ownership is really irrelevant. I mean, the ownership tends to be in some big publicly held company. Ownership has nothing to do with what appears in the newspaper or the magazine or what's broadcast on the television. I mean, I'm an owner of some of those companies. I own 100 shares of Viacom or something. I mean, that's irrelevant. What's important is who is deciding what's news. What is on the front page of the newspaper and what isn't. What leads the 6 o'clock evening news and what doesn't. So yeah, there is this, you call it a war, but the fact is that the left still is in possession of the heavy artillery. And what the right has is more kind of guerrilla forces. You know, we've got blogs like ours. We've got the internet. We dominate talk radio. But these are small bore weapons compared to what the left can bring to bear.
The guerrilla journalism of conservative bloggers like Powerline sprang to action after Dan Rather's 60 Minutes report on September 8, 2004. Rather's report revealed new documents from the early 1970s, casting further doubt upon President Bush's National Guard service. Within hours, a post by Buckhead on freerepublic.com declared the documents were forgeries because the proportional font used in the documents would not have been available in the early 70s. The next morning, Powerline's Scott Johnson picked up on the story and posted Buckhead's comments. And with that, the swarm was unleashed. Powerline received hundreds of tips from readers with knowledge of the typewriters and protocol used in military memos. A right-wing blog called Little Green Footballs created a close replica of one memo using nothing more than Microsoft Word, and composited that with the CBS document, demonstrating how easy someone could forge the document. The blogosphere was on fire. Bloggers were engaging in their own reporting and consulting their own experts. By mid-afternoon, both the Drudge Report and the traditional media picked up on the scent, prompting CBS to release a statement defending the memo's authenticity. Lefty blogs soon jumped into the action, doing their own typographic analysis. Dan Rather stood behind the story.
These questions grew out of new witnesses and new evidence, including documents written by Lieutenant Bush's squadron commander. Today, on the internet and elsewhere, some people, including many who are partisan political operatives, concentrated not on the key questions of the overall story, but on the documents that were part of the support of the story. They allege that the documents are fake.
But CBS's story continued to crumble, as both new and old media found new evidence discrediting the document's authenticity.
Former CBS News executive Jonathan Klein defended the CBS News system of multiple layers of checks and balances, compared with a guy sitting in his living room in his pajamas, writing what he thinks. The Pajama Brigade declared the documents forgeries on September 8th, but it would take 12 days for CBS News to admit their mistake.
At the time, CBS News and this reporter fully believed the documents were genuine. Tonight, after further investigation, we can no longer vouch for their authenticity. It was a mistake. CBS News deeply regrets it. Also, I want to say personally and directly, I'm sorry.
The audience knows more than you do. Prophetic words from journalist and blogger Dan Gilmore from his book, We the Media.
There's a lot of pressure from the grassroots and from people like the open source community. And think of blogs at some level as open source journalism. That's a powerful force, it's a valuable force, and it's up against another powerful force, which is the people who demand control of things that we do and say and own, who have had the power and are not going to give it up without one hell of a fight.
Clearly, blogs can influence journalism. But are they journalism? Rebecca Blood says no.
The reporter goes out and collects facts and information by talking to eyewitnesses and talking to experts and doing research, and collects all of that information and tries to tell a complete story for a general audience. Webloggers, by and large, have no such aspiration. Webloggers are all about their own point of view, and I think that's as it should be.
A lot of webloggers try to argue that weblogs will replace journalism, and I don't buy that, not for a second. I scolded some on my weblog some time ago saying that how dare you when Danny Pearl lost his life, or now in the Iraqi war, when journalists have lost their lives at the front line, gathering the facts, gathering the sound and the images for us, That's journalism.
The current war in Iraq saw a blurring of the lines between journalism and blogging, with both soldiers and journalists blogging first-hand accounts of the war from the front lines. One of those journalists was BBC producer Stuart Hughes.
I knew when I was out there it was going to be rather difficult to keep in touch with family and friends, and so I was just looking for a very simple way of communicating with my loved ones. I was aware that the weeks ahead were going to be momentous and noteworthy, but I never intended to use my blog as a form of journalism. A few weeks after I'd been writing it, the Guardian newspaper here in Britain published an article in which they rounded up a number of websites and blogs about the Iraq War, and so I suddenly found myself lumped in with these people who were classed as war bloggers. And I started getting emails from people who said, what we appreciate about what you're writing is that it gives us a sense of what's happening in Iraq that we're not getting from the mainstream media. You're giving us a sense of daily life in Iraq that we're not getting from CNN or from Fox or from the BBC. It's a much more realistic, a much more human perspective. It became very clear that people were looking for something different. People were looking for something that they weren't getting from the mainstream news media. And though I would hesitate to call what I was writing at the time journalism in the traditional sense, because I wasn't checking the information that people were giving me, it was very much a scrapbook of thoughts and impressions. It was nevertheless a journal, a daily journal, my view of what was happening around me.
Hughes posted audio updates to his blog from his cell phone using a service called Oddblog.
If I sound a bit shaken up, it's because I am. We drove about 15 to 20 kilometres inside what was until a couple of days ago Iraqi territory, and a large artillery shell came down about 50 yards away from us, forcing us all to dive for cover. And there was another large artillery shell. So obviously the Iraqis are still shelling quite strongly.
The blog overnight and my life overnight changed in a way I never could have anticipated. It was a few days before the fall of Saddam Hussein's regime, and I'd travelled with a team to what was the front line, the central and southern areas that were controlled by Saddam Hussein. The Iraqi forces had abandoned their positions and the front line had crumbled. And the Iraqi forces had left behind a number of trenches and defensive positions. So we went to these positions and did what we'd been doing for the previous 2 months, which was to walk around, have a look, to film and get a sense of what was going on there. We had an Iraqi or a Kurdish soldier with us who assured us the area was safe. But the moment I stepped out of the Jeep, I stepped on and triggered an anti-personnel landmine, which exploded and immediately blew off a section of my right foot. I assumed, as we all did in that moment, that we were coming under attack. I was initially treated by American Special Forces, and the British surgeons did everything they could to try and save my foot, but the injuries to my foot were quite extensive. Just under a week after I stepped on that landmine, my right leg was amputated below the knee. And so within a matter of days, I'd gone from being a fit and active 31-year-old to being in a wheelchair, disabled, debilitated, and really not knowing what the future held. And so I felt I had a duty to the audience that I'd built up of people who were reading my blog to use the same honesty and to write with the same honesty that I hoped that people that I talked to in my line of work gave to me. And so I started writing very openly about what was happening to me, about the grief that I felt at losing my leg, because it was grief. And then as time went on, I wrote about learning to walk again, learning to come to terms with living with an artificial leg. the good times and the bad times, because there were some very happy, inspiring times, as well as the very, very low and depressing times in those early months after the accident. And I found that people who were reading my blog responded very strongly to it. I found a whole new audience of people responding to me, writing to me and saying, we really feel for what you're going through, and don't stop writing. Having those people out there who were reading the blog every day and emailing me and offering me support was hugely important to me. And I may never know just how important the blog was to me, but I'm sure that one of the reasons why I was able to come to terms with what I'd been through was because I had that outlet for my frustrations and my pain.
Stuart Hughes found hope through new friends on the other side of his computer screen. Sometimes blogs can bring you closer to people on this side of the computer screen.
My own mother, who started a blog by herself because she knew that her son was extremely into blogging. She actually was recovering from breast cancer. And I learned things about what my mom was going through in treatment on her blog that I don't think she would have told me in person.
My hair falls out like tiny leaves falling off a tree. Just constant falling.
And things like that are very personal to her that I don't think she would have told me, but that I got to find out anyway through her blog. And she was telling me in a way, because I'm probably one of the only people that actually reads her blog. So it was kind of nice being able to read things like that were for me through her blog.
I recently visited my friend Crystal's blog, Space Waitress. Normally she posts about politics, but on this day I was shocked to find a very personal post saying she felt suicidal.
I probably wouldn't have told people in person the extent of how depressed I was. I felt so stuck, and I didn't really actually want to die. I mean, part of me wanted to, but part of me I was desperate, and I needed some help or advice, and I got that. I just felt really desperate, and I decided I was gonna jump off a bridge and kill myself. And then I started thinking about, and I really was sincere about it too. It's something that's, plagued me off and on for a while now, just this feeling that I've been painted into a corner. It was funny because I put the post up, and then I hit submit, and then 2 minutes later the phone rang, and it was one of my friends. And I was still crying. I was so upset. Then a couple hours later, Lane in Iowa called and invited me down to stay with him and Tina for a couple days.
I saw the post. I don't know, it was probably not that long after you put it up, maybe just a few minutes or something, and I'm like, Tina, come here. You have to see this. And so Tina came into the room and read it, and we were both quiet for a minute. It was obvious that a comment wasn't going to be sufficient. If a friend says something like that they're thinking of killing themselves, you don't leave a comment on their blog hoping that, they'll find it before they do whatever they're thinking of doing. And so we called her just to, make sure she was okay, and to tell her this was something she shouldn't do, because she's got lots of friends and there's people that care about her, and what better thing to do than come to Iowa City?
Sometimes you just need a change of perspective.
Yeah.
And that's what we had to offer.
Buckminster Fuller said that I think he was 32 and he was going to kill himself, and he suddenly realized that his life belonged to the universe. And I don't know if I'd ever had that kind of epiphany before, and I certainly had one the other day. like I said in that post I made, I really, really did almost kill myself, and then I stopped because I realized how ridiculous it would be. And then I realized, well, if I was going to be dead, as long as I stay alive, I can do anything I want now. And it's a little scary.
It wasn't long before Crystal got involved in politics again. My friends and I were excited and energized by the promise of Howard Dean.
My goodness gracious.
Nobody else was speaking out against the war or reaching out to us. Dean had the very first presidential campaign weblog in history. He actually seemed to care about what we had to say, and gave us a way to talk to each other online and offline. Like thousands of other hopeful internet junkies, we went to our first Howard Dean meetup. The room was nearly overflowing. We had found our people. The Dean campaign broke all the rules of traditional politics. Candidates aren't supposed to come out of nowhere and rocket to the top. At least, not without the help of the gatekeeper, television. The Nixon-Kennedy debates of 1960 marked the beginning of the broadcast age of politics. The power of television as a political weapon of mass persuasion has grown unabated. Until now.
Say hello to the internet.
Hi, Internet.
I'm Christopher Light, and this is the Blogging of the President 2004. Howard Dean came from nowhere last year to the front of the pack for the Democratic presidential nomination. All the contenders have blogs and internet strategies by now.
Howard Dean's geek-powered grassroots campaign revolutionized politics, harnessing the internet's innate ability to give power to the people. My girlfriend Lori and I were thrilled to journey to the center of the hive, Howard Dean headquarters in Burlington, Vermont. We met the man who might one day be the official White House blogger, Matthew Gross.
So here we are at Dean for America, Burlington headquarters. It is just before the new year, 2004, the year we're going to defeat George Bush and hopefully use blogs to make that happen. So Joe Trippi's written a blog entry. I just need to make some changes to that, and then as soon as the bat goes live with the change, we're going to put it up. Right now, 758,677. This is our end of the quarter fundraising bat, and our goal is 1.5 million. But what we've just realized is that our supporters have pushed us past 14 million for the quarter. So Joe Trippi's written an entry saying you're at 14 million, and the campaign's in your hands. It's up to you. How far can you go?
Howard Dean leads the headlines in Campaign News Daily. The Dean campaign is launching another of its now familiar end of the quarter fundraising appeals. Within the last hour, a Dean spokesman revealed that the Dean campaign will report raising more than $14 million in the fourth quarter.
What that really signaled was the cue to the traditional press and to a lot of Washington pundits that the internet was something to be taken seriously because it had finally spoken in the language they had understood, which is fundraising and money.
Guess what? There's only one medium in the world that allows 2 million Americans to give $100 in one day to kick George Bush's ass. The internet. Our democracies, we know it's threatened right now. I really believe that. We got to wake people up, and I think the Dean campaign woke a lot of people up. I think it woke up the Democratic Party. And now, the big fear is we woke them up and they go back to the party I'm talking about goes back to sleep now that everything's safe, I'm not about to do that. I mean, someone's got to hold people's feet to the fire. I can't hold anybody's feet to the fire, but a million Americans could. We are self-government. This is supposedly a democracy where it's hard to have self-government if the people are not involved in the governing of their nation, involved in the debate. Who is supposed to have control? Aren't the people supposed to have control? I remember at Bryant Park, we landed in New York really late, and my cell phone rings, and Nick O'Malley our webmaster calls and says, we just got a cool idea that came up on the blog. Somebody commented that when the governor walks up on stage, if we have it, we're at like 948,000, and they're going to make a big push to 1 million. If they make it, they want him to walk up on stage with a red bat and say, you did it. And not only that, now there's all kinds of other people in the comment section saying, yeah, that's a great idea, that's a great idea. I mean, tens of thousands of people are hitting our blog, and they all know that just 45 minutes earlier, they suggested he walk up on stage with a red bat. It's the governor walking up there and saying, you gave me this idea, and I'm doing it. The rest of the world had no clue. I mean, all the rest of America just saw the governor walk up and say, hey, you know, we did it, you did it, we raised $1 million. But everybody involved in the blogosphere knew that this campaign was, they owned it, that they listened, we were listening to them. And no other campaign does that. The biggest hurdle right now is to get over the average American's disbelief that they can make a difference. I mean, we've gone through 40 years of broadcast politics, of millions of dollars spent to bathe you with television telling you what to think. You go through 40 years of that, and there's a lot of Americans that are like, I'd love to make a difference. I really want to do something for the common good, but the country's too big, and who the hell am I? I can't make a difference. And I think what the Dean campaign said, and all those people said, is hell no, you can't. Yeah, you can.
These are the guys who really keep us up to date with what the press is saying about Howard Dean and about other candidates. One of the things that happens on the blog, commenters and the people who read the blog, is they constantly talk about what's happening on the media. But one of the strengths of the campaign is we do have literally like 40,000 readers on the blog. We've got 4 people here. There's no way you could hire 40,000 media miners. You know, certainly television is an extremely powerful, powerful force. And, you know, I would not say by any means that the blog or the internet at this point influences as many people. But what it does present is a sort of countervailing force to the spin that's happening on television. And that spreads. That's how the truth gets out. It gets out not through a single source, but it gets out through everybody taking action. All of a sudden, it was like coming up from being underwater. You know there's people out there, and they're talking. It's incredible. It's the belief that all of us together are stronger than all of us separated or isolated. Democracy is a conversation. I mean, that's what it is. It's the end of the broadcast age in politics and began this new age. The blog age begins, exactly.
Oregon and Washington and Michigan, and then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Yeah!
I seen the future, and the future is tonight.
The mainstream media is trying to take something really trivial, Howard Dean's supposed scream, and turn it into more evidence that he's angry, which he's not. And it's just completely trivial, and I've just been very upset about it all day because I can't believe that anyone's even like talking about it at all. So when you say you're blogging, does that mean just like actively blogging and posting, or what does that mean?
I'm reading blogs and writing a blog entry. I just say I'm blogging.
Okay.
MMA, the whole damn thing is blogging. So. Lori.
Blogios. I'm not really afraid of having the blog anymore, and like I guess the main impetus for wanting to do it and for thinking about it again is that I feel like I really want to do something, and I'm sick of feeling hopeless and helpless. I'm sick of people that are in charge of things being able to lie and get away with it, and people going along with that, and I just feel like, you know, at least having a voice is at least doing something. I wrote down a big rant here that is going to be the first post on my blog. because I'm so pissed off at the media for so many different reasons, but mostly the thing that touches it off is the way that they have been smearing Dean. It probably started mostly with the Diane Sawyer interview. She just kept trying to make Judy Dean say Howard Dean had a temper and that they fight all the time or something, or that he hit her. I don't know. It just really was so irritating. It was such a shallow interview. Journalism is such a joke. You know, they have this thing that the public is stupid and we don't know what to think, and they have to tell us what to think, and they have to tell us who's gonna win and whatever and who to vote for, and I'm just incensed. Rightly so.
Both Lori and I have become more engaged in local politics since starting our blogs. We blogged about our Democratic Precinct Caucus, where we decided to become delegates. When our city bus drivers went on strike, Lori wrote an eloquent post about it. The meek shall inherit the earth, but not a transit system. On my blog, I posted a speech our mayor gave about the strike.
She's lived the American dream. She has never missed a day of work until the bus strike.
Both of our posts were featured on the Metro Transit Strike blog, started by a member of the transit union, which became the place for the inside scoop on the strike's impact and negotiations. I decided to harness our local blogs for some good old-fashioned activism. I issued a blog action alert, imploring local bloggers to write their thoughts on the strike's impact and to urge their readers to call the governor in a one-day phone blitz. About 10 Minnesota blogs chimed in, and the governor agreed to meet with the union for the first time that night. Coincidence? Yeah, probably. But it was really our first glimmer of the power of blogs to be citizen media. Whatever the result, it feels good to roll up our sleeves and get our feet wet in local grassroots online democracy. Lori and I took our blog-inspired activism all the way to the Minnesota Democratic Party convention in Duluth. Lori was there as an alternate delegate, voting on the state party's platform.
Democracy is about circles.
I somehow managed to get a press pass, becoming our state convention's first credentialed blogger. The only question is, what am I supposed to do?
And United States Senator John Edwards. Now I remember why I love Minnesota so much.
Senator John Edwards was the star of the show. Maybe I could get an interview with him. I managed to piggyback into a small press conference with Edwards.
Are you pressed? Yes.
Now I was in the exclusive press club. Little did they know a blogger had infiltrated their little party.
Chuck.
Thank you.
Oh yes, the revolution will be blogged.
Olive Brandt for the Kerry campaign for Edwards Democrats here in Minnesota.
Except I couldn't actually think of anything to ask. I think I was entranced by John Edwards' shiny blonde hair. I may be the media, but that doesn't mean I'm cut out to be a journalist. Still, people appreciated my first-hand account of the convention experience. Whatever their political stripe, blogs bring us the power of the press in our living rooms. Blogs are the fifth estate, citizens watching the media and the world. Blogs let the audience contribute new perspectives and fresh voices, making news a conversation instead of a monologue, and establishing the audience's authority. Lori and I certainly weren't the first blog couple. That honor goes to Meg Hurahan and Jason Kotke. Meg worked at Blogger in San Francisco. Jason was a blog superstar in Minneapolis. They met at South by Southwest Interactive Festival in Austin, Texas. They fell in love, moved to New York, and lived happily ever after.
I asked Jason why he didn't use Blogger, when we were at the conference, and he said, oh, it's because it doesn't support this date format that I use on my website.
And I was just trying to be nice, because really I didn't use it because I was used to sort of
You didn't want to
updating
change
it by
your
hand,
ways.
and I like everything just so, and I didn't want sort of Blogger messing around with whatever it was going to mess around with.
Then I thought, oh, he's much nicer than he seems on his weblog. I don't know. I thought he was conceited because he just some of the things he had written, but I was wrong. What? You're totally not conceited.
Okay.
It was a mistake. It's your tone.
Mm.
It's hard to tell that you're kidding. You have a very dry sense of humor, and online it doesn't carry very well. So I thought you were being a jerk.
Right.
But you.
Derek Powachek and Heather Champ are another blog couple who met at South by Southwest. Derek is well known in web circles for Fray, a personal storytelling website that in some ways foreshadowed blogs. Heather expresses herself with pictures instead of words. These are photos from Heather's photo blog, where she posts a new photo and link every day. I caught up with Derek and Heather having a little discussion about gender representation in the blogosphere.
Each know of our universe with like the 10 to 20 to 30 blogs we each read each day is a very small universe. And yet there are like other things going on in other countries and other places, and even like within, just next door to our community where it's a whole other world. And the women are there. I think I don't know. It's unfortunate that people can't see us as like, we're here, we're doing stuff. But
in fact, in 70% of Fray posts come from women.
Right.
And you see that 70% number a lot in terms of virtual communities. Women are the first adopters for virtual community. I don't understand where the scorekeeping comes in, because in my work I see a lot of women.
Right. I don't know. The problem is that we come to conferences and there are lots of, like all of the keynotes are men this year, right? Are there any men of color? Or I think it's all white men, the keynotes.
I don't believe in keeping score.
Okay.
No, we don't want to do this.
Oh, we don't want to go here, because it's just, how does it not become scorekeeping? And I'm still working myself to find that balance, that I'm not like I'm not keeping score, but at the same point, I really want equal representation of everybody, like of what? You're doing that sigh thing again. Sigh. What?
I am the child of Jewish immigrants who were kicked out of their country because of who they were. So I was taught a long time ago to assimilate, which is why it makes me uncomfortable to keep track of what gender everybody is and what race everybody is. And if I came to this conference looking for Jews and thinking it's important to see Jews talking, it would make me nuts. And I don't think it's healthy or productive to keep score. I think it's more interesting to find out who's talking, what's their background, what do they have to say, and does that capture me? And I don't care what package it's coming from. But that's me. That's just my values.
Who is Plain Lane?
Plain Lane is me, Odin Soley, 35-year-old, married dude, father of two.
That's right, Plain Lane turned out to be a man.
For 3 years, this was a character and a voice which was extremely believable, more real than a lot of the reality that the audience was interacting with already in other blogs. She came into existence simply by virtue of the fact that I was looking for a good character to write and a good excuse to write. Someone who could help me, a character who could help me explore the blogging format. that daily topicality to kind of like just put a character in the context of everyday life. Now, I might be bogged down in the tedium of my, life, working my 60 hours a week, but Lane could just blow off and, kind of take a road trip somewhere and have a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of element of kind of like vicarious, living that happened through Lane in that regard. And basically, for 3 years, what did I do with my life besides, kind of bury my second company, get a job at another.com, and write Plain Lane? Not a whole lot. I haven't been the best, father and husband that I could and should be. So I had decided, I'm just going to end this blog and move on. And honestly, I thought that I was going to just set Plain Lane aside and move on, literally. I didn't need closure. I'm the author. I've been writing this. So, I know she's fictional. I know. She's not going anywhere. She's just on the page right where I left her. And yet the audience was just, oh my God, what's happened to her? She's gone.
Plain Lane's loyal followers reeled in speculation. We realized that none of us had ever actually seen or talked to the girl in the pictures we thought was Lane. Speculation turned to investigation, and countless threads of amateur sleuthing revealed the real Plain Lane.
And so they tracked her down, and instead of finding her, they found me. And my life changed a little bit. And thus began my 15 minutes of fame, I guess.
Well, it's 4:53 a.m. I just did a very bad thing. I just deleted my blog. This is how I feel right now. Like putting a gun to my head. I hit the wrong button. I meant to delete my mom's blog, but I deleted my blog instead. I wouldn't be a very good documentary filmmaker without asking myself a few questions. So what are you feeling right now? Hey, get off my back, man. I don't owe you anything. I guess I feel like if I lost my blog, I've definitely lost a part of myself. I have a frantic support email into TypePad. I think they know who I am. Not that I should be special, but that'd be great.
Lover, don't cry, I am not your man. If you think that I am in such demand, oh, that was just a dream that I might wait.
It's a sad commentary on blogs, but I predict that one day people will know what blogs are. They will obsess on the blog that most entertains them, on the one they can most identify with, on the one that's the most cathartic release for the emotions or the angst or the despair that they feel.